those officers are gonna be acquitted. And there was racism involved. The Koreans and the blacks and the Koreans. Open your eyes, watch what's going on.
Twilight, Los Angeles. A stunning film of Anna Devere Smith's acclaimed solo portrait of a city in crisis.
Big and dreadful things. Burn that sucker down!
Next on Stage on Screen.
Isn't human life cheap? Let's play it again.
This presentation of Stage on Screen is proudly underwritten by Starbucks Coffee Company. Now you can find Starbucks whole bean and ground coffee in the grocery aisle.
Major funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, the Levi Strauss Foundation, the Luesta T. Mertz Charitable Trust, Dorothy and Louis Cullman, the Cornelius V. Starr Fund for Arts Programming at 13 WNET New York, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Miriam and Peter Haas Fund, the Harold and Mimi Steinberg Charitable Trust, and contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
It was like the end of the world, you know? It was like a whole other time. A major disaster, man-made, a catastrophe. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that was devastation, you know? The violence, the destruction, the terror. I mean, that was something. I mean, I have never seen a movie like that. You know, the question we're asking is if anything has changed because of the riots.
I think it didn't get any better.
All right, now what about the riots? There was attention paid to the riots. Was there enough attention paid to the riots?
You had to pay attention, no matter where you live.
You think we need any more social change?
Do we need change?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. We only got little bitty changes.
Rodney King incident? Nothing to do with race.
They burned my place out.
It's on.
Revolution is today, money. Bump all the bullshit.
No justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, no justice.
13,000 square feet of building all gone.
This country told the world that it was the great melting pot. In my eyes, it's a boiling pot waiting to erupt.
Oh, you can repeat whatever I say. I will tell you exactly. Let's see. April the 29th. Was that a Wednesday or a Thursday? Did you hear what happened to me because of the Beverly Hills Hotel? I don't know if you know this, but I do a lot of publicity. I've been on television. I do shows on real estate. I do shows on silicone. I've been on 60 Minutes. They called me to Washington. I had 36 surgeries. I had silicone injections and 36 surgeries on my face. And so, I'm divorcing. And I was married to Gig Young, and there was a big scandal, and so they wrote a book about it, and they called me to interview me for that. So when they call me to interview me, I never know what it's going to be for, whether it's going to be real estate, which I love to do. Silicone I do to help other people. I was such a victim. I was paralyzed for a year. My face was like this. My eye was like that. They went in and removed a grapefruit-sized silicone from my face, went in and drilled a hole into my head to put bone marrow in. I had 15 surgeries on this side. This was an 18-hour surgery. I almost died. And so I said, well, what can I give back to the world? Because of what? All I had was silicone injections to give me cheekbones, nothing more. You'll read the story. And so I decided that I would do interviews to keep women and men from having silicone injected into their bodies. It belongs in cars. And so I've been on this crusade in between my work, and so I do a lot of interviews, a lot of television, pretty good. But when they call me to interview me when the hotel closed, it just didn't come out right. Well, I mean, you know how they take things out of context. And so, maybe I should back and lead up and explain why I was so frightened and why I said what I said. On the day of the riot, we were sitting here safe and sound in Beverly Hills, 'cause it started slowly in building. All of a sudden, we hear people screaming, "Look out the window, we see smoke."
I grew up with all this rich stuff at home. And then when I went to school, they started telling me I was inferior because I was Mexican. So I knew from an early age that I had an enemy. And that enemy was those nice white teachers. And I always wondered, why did I have this madness in me that I understood this? And it's not an enemy that I hated, you know, it's not a hate thing, but the insanity that I carry with me. It started when I took that beating from the police in 1942, when I was in my teens. I was running around as a zoot suiter, and cops beat me up bad, you know. So, well, I don't know. One of them said something about my mama or something, and so I threw a punch at one of them, and that sealed my doom. That sealed my doom. 4 cops took me into a room and locked the door. They started kicking me in the head. And the kicks in the head were so bad that they fractured my eardrums. I was deaf on both ears, worse than I am now. And from that day, I had a hate in me. And even now, it's awful. It's awful. If I would read in the newspaper, cop shot down in the street, killed, dead, a human being, a fellow human being, I say, you know, so what? So what? You know, he's probably one of those motherfuckers. You know. But I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist. I have white friends, though. But, you know, I don't see them as white. I don't see them as white. Don't see... I had a lot of anxiety about my boys. I told them, you know, I just, you know, I said, you know, cop stops you, you know, throw your hands up. You know, let them tell you what they want, you know. You be sure and find out who they are, you know, be sure and tell me their names. But they never told me. They never told me. Stephen was in Stanford. Came home one weekend to sing with the band. Cop pulled him over, pulled a gun at his head. How do you think a father feels? Stuff that happened to me 50 years ago, happening to my boys, man. You know, and they just, they didn't even tell me. They didn't even tell me because it just made me sick. Just made me sick. And even Rudy, my oldest. Hey, Margaret, tell him, didn't they pull you over that time? The Alhambra cops insulted you and Rudy that time. Oh, man, my enemy.
The Rodney King incident had nothing to do with race, but because it was black and he was being beaten, and you saw this filmy tape, and it brought back in the minds of a lot of people the terrible beatings of the South, the history of lynchings in the South, and suddenly it became a major racial issue.
Who would have ever thought this was gonna happen to us? We wasn't raised like this. We wasn't raised with no black and white thing. We had all kinds of friends. Black, white, Mexican, Chinese. Most of our friends were Spanish. Guess the first time for everything, though. You wouldn't have known him to recognize him. It was a hell of a look. That's why he has a lot to be thankful for. I told him he had a lot to be thankful for. Hell of a lot. Couldn't even talk, just duh. I said, God darn. It took 3 plastic surgeries to get Rodney to look like Rodney again. But I knew one thing. My brother's son, sitting up there in that hospital bed that I saw, looking like hell that I saw, I knew I was going to do everything to fight for our justice and fairness. Because I didn't care if it was the president. Well, you know how, like the president of the United States, he's like the top thing. Anything happened to the president, everybody rave. Well, that's the way I felt towards Rodney. I mean, here's a nobody, right? But that's the way I felt towards him. You understand what I'm saying? You do? All right.
Is this America or South Africa?
I'm announcing today that we have obtained indictments against 4 Los Angeles police officers for their role in the beating of Mr. King. LAPD officer Lawrence Powell, Timothy Wynn, Theodore Brasino, and Sergeant Stacy Kuhn have been indicted for assault with a deadly weapon and for excessive use of force under color of authority.
Pal holds the baton like this. That is not a good. The proper way to hold the baton is like this. Now, one of the things that everybody is talking about is why did it take 56 baton blows? And it all comes down to Pal had no strength and no power in his baton strikes because he was weak and inefficient with the baton training. Oh, yeah. I know what I was going to do. Prior to this, we lost the chokehold, the upper body control hold in 1982. If we still had the chokehold, this whole videotape would have never been on. This whole incident would have lasted about 15 seconds. And the reason we lost the upper body control hold, because in a period of about, we had something like 17 or 20 deaths in a period of about 1975, 76 to 1982. And it was associated with, it was being used on blacks, and blacks were dying. And a number of the so-called community leaders, special interest group community leaders, came forward and complained and created the hysteria about the upper body control hold, that it was an inhumane use of force treatment. And Gilbert Lindsay, who was a really neat man, saw a demonstration on the baton, and he said, "You're not going to beat my people with that baton." He said, "I'd rather you use the chokehold." But a couple of other people said you could beat them into submission, you could break their bones, but you're not choking them anymore. And so the political framework was laid for the elimination of the upper body control hold.
March 16th, 1991, a young black woman is shot to death by the Korean owner of a grocery store for allegedly stealing a bottle of orange juice.
Harlan's family was asked if this will lead to violence.
Yes, I damn sure hope so, that there would be all the hell in the black community.
Somebody would care.
Would stand up and see this insanity for exactly what it is.
Harlan's death occurred days after the Rodney King beating and added to the racial tensions in the black community.
I have a favorite saying that probably is not going to come off too well either, but I'm just going to be honest. I feel like the Koreans were like roaches. They were burnt out from Long Beach to Pasadena. All their businesses were targeted. Latasha's name was written on many of them.
Barbara, could you come in here for a minute, please? Latasha hits Mrs. Dew in the face 4 times, very viciously. She knocks it down twice. I mean, this fight was no contest. I'll take the girl. I'll take the girl. This little girl. Didn't you think the girl was much smaller? Misleading. Miss 5'6", 152 pounds, and she beats the hell out of this lady. Oh, Barbara, let's take this back to the beginning because it goes so fast. 52 seconds and a 15-year-old girl is dead. And it's tragic. It is so tragic. The gun had a hair trigger. They'd been robbed before. And there was racism involved. I mean, the Koreans are like I am. I'm a racist. How can I live in America, not be a racist? I pull for the black coach. I pull for the team with the black quarterback. We all have those feelings. Now watch this. It's a 9-year-old boy, 9-year-old little boy with his 12-year-old sister had to watch this killing. Isn't that sad? 9 o'clock, Saturday morning, there's a young lady coming up, almost like Hollywood, in the black sweater on the left. Now watch this very carefully. This is an enhanced tape. It's been played over and over again. It's a surveillance tape. It's very poor quality, but it would cost us $300,000 to get anything better than this. So watch this. Watch this. Look at there. Watch this very carefully. Watch. Look at there. Look at there. Doesn't she have a strong right hand? Boom! Look at there! Like a billiard ball in the pocket. Boom! Look at there in the face. Boom! She knocks it down. Muhammad Ali couldn't do better. Boom! She hits Mrs. Dew in the face. The lady throws the chair. Mrs. Dew's reaching under the counter now. She's trying to get the gun out of the holster. And Latasha comes back to the counter with the orange juice. She puts the orange juice back and the gun. She sees the gun. She makes one step. Boom! Blood, brains, right under the cash register. Now, when I first heard about this case, they had the girl walking out of the front door, you know, shot in the back, walking down the street. But it didn't happen that way. Because if you look at her head, you look at the girl's head in relationship to the cash register, right under there, 36 feet from the front door. That's enough, Barbara. Thank you very much. Isn't that sad? Isn't human life cheap? Let's play it again. We found it very unusual that Charles Lloyd, the top black attorney in this city, would take this case, a millionaire. But for Charles Lloyd to defend a Korean woman in the death of a black child, well, I guess he just sold his card. He's no longer a card-carrying member of our community or our nation as a people any longer. He's a sellout. I guess that's just the best way we could put it. Because we all know, as we sit here today as black people, if either of us had killed a Korean child, shot them in the back of the head, and it was recorded on videotape, we would not be sitting here talking today. Sun Ja-doo took the gun because so nervous. Maybe I understand that situation because I have a similar situation in my store. 5, 6 youngsters come in at one time, usually black guys, maybe 15, 17 years old. One guy's talking with me, one guy's asking the price, one guy's asking which one is where. Then that makes me look another place. Then they're gonna try and steal something. They have a big backpack, put a soda, whatever. After that, I really hate this country. I really hate. We are not the right customer and owner, but just the right enemy. Justice denied Latasha Harlins is justice denied every American citizen. And the sentencing of Sun Ja-doo was a $500 fine. Restitution to the funeral expenses. You can't bury a dog in Los Angeles for $500. Latasha's funeral cost $7,000. So $500 fine. We think it's more to the tune of $1 billion it cost this city April 29th. Because no matter what people say, the injustice done to Rodney King, it just coincides as there's a parallel between Rodney and Latasha. We lived in apartment A6, which is right next door to A8, which is where George Holliday lived. And the next thing we knew, there were 10 or 12 officers making a circle around Rodney King. And they started to hit him. And they were kicking him and they were hitting him with sticks. And we were just like, oh my goodness. I thought he was really in danger out there. It was such an oppressive atmosphere. I knew it was wrong. Whatever he had done, I just knew in my heart, this is wrong. You know, I mean, they can't do that. And even my husband was petrified. He said, let's go inside. He was trying to get me to come away from the scene. But I said, no. I said, we have to watch this because this is wrong. And my husband was petrified because he comes from a country where this is prevalent. Police abuse is prevalent in Mexico. So we stayed and we watched the whole thing. And I was kind of upset at the outcome because I had a lot to say. I was scheduled to testify, and I was just really upset. And I said to the prosecutor, I said, well, when do you want me to come? Because the date said such and such a time, and that was, and he said, well, I'll call you and give you a time so you don't have to wait around. Now, the time came and the time went, and so I started to call him, and I said, well, you're going to call me or not? And he said, well, I can't really talk to you. I don't think we're going to be using you because what you say contradicts what the Highway Patrol said. And I remember I was so upset. I wrote him a letter and I faxed it. And I said, these officers are going to be acquitted. I said, if you did not put one resident, Terry White did not put one resident, not one resident, except for George Holliday. I said, if you did not put one resident to say what they saw, those officers are going to be acquitted. I said, let the jury hear the facts. Let them hear what other people have to say.
But I think that the prosecution was just dead set that the video was going to tell all. But that video doesn't show where those officers went and assaulted Rodney King in the beginning. Do you see that? And I remember I was so upset. I said to my coworker, I said, oh my goodness, I just had this terrible dream that the officers were acquitted. And she said, oh, you know, they're not going to be acquitted. You shouldn't think like that. I said, I wasn't thinking. It was a dream. Well, I just saw the men in the courtroom, and I just felt in my heart something's happening. Because dreams are made of this indelible substance. And my coworker said, you know, you shouldn't think like that. I said, I wasn't thinking. It was a dream. And that's all.
Guilty, guilty, we saw it.
It took a year, but the case that caused a furor over police brutality has finally come to trial.
Because of pre-trial publicity and political fallout, the trial was moved from Los Angeles to nearby Ventura County. It took a month to find...
The jury is essentially white and middle-aged. There are 7 men and 5 women. None of the jurors are black.
I knew there would be people unhappy with the verdict, but I didn't expect anything near what happened. They were taking us out of the courtroom, and there were a lot of obnoxious reporters around, and the police were trying to get us into the buses and hide our faces. And one of the obnoxious reporters from Channel 11 News said, "Why are you hiding your heads in shame? Do you know that people are dying and buildings are burning in South Los Angeles because of you?" And to see on television all the political leaders, Mayor Bradley and President Bush, condemning our verdict. And some of the jurors, we kind of tossed it around that, was this some sort of a setup? We felt like we were pawns to the system and that we were being tossed aside. And even the judge, when he was reading the verdict, some of the jurors said there was a look of disdain on his face. And he had the power and the right to withhold our names for a period of time, but he didn't do that. He just released them right away. And our names and our addresses were published in newspapers all across the country. The New York Times published the value of our homes. We received threatening letters and phone calls. But worse than the letters, worse than the threats, all of the jurors got letters from the KKK saying, "We support you. If you need our help, if you would like to join our organization, we would be happy to welcome you into the fold."
It was a clean sweep for the defendant, not guilty of assault.
The videotape wasn't enough to convince a mostly white jury the officers were guilty. Within hours, there was madness in the streets.
I took a route home that kept me off the freeways. I went the back roads to the orange orchards, and about halfway through that trip, I turned on the radio and listened to I was listening, the live coverage from the helicopter reporter at Florence and Normandy. And I was, I'm just a Kansas boy. It's just like, oh my God, what is going on? And then I went home and I didn't sleep for probably three and a half days. I ruptured my bowels. I had diarrhea so bad I had to have emergency surgery at 8:30 one night. Watching this, it was just the work of sinister, diabolical predators.
The core, that which is normally bypassed or overlooked, was shown. It came forward. It let it be known.
I went downstairs with a couple of copy messengers. I grabbed a pair of scissors. A guy looked like he was coming in. I shouted at him with the scissors and a couple of copy messengers with me. My wife is an emergency room doctor, and she said, because she feels that she's considerably more in tune with the kinds of guys who go around with scissors and other weapons, why don't you just go back upstairs and work with the copy? Because you might not do very well with the crowd you seem to want to be running with. But I wasn't about to be stopped because there was a clear sense that clearly big and dreadful things were happening.
I think this thing about the Koreans and the blacks, that wasn't altogether true, And the thing that happened in to the Korean stores in the black neighborhood, that was just due to lack of My husband came to the United States 28 years ago, and he was very high educated and very nice to all the people. And he started a business 7, 10, 20 years ago. And he worked so hard. He worked very hard. And he also donated a lot of money to the Compton area. And the city council, they knows him. And the police, they knows him. Then why he has to get shot, I don't know why. So really angry, And this thing, they talk about the blacks and the Koreans. But we was Mexicans looting over there in Koreatown. Those wasn't blacks. Those wasn't blacks looting over there. Those was Mexicans looting over there. Those wasn't blacks. As soon as I heard about the verdict, which wasn't until about 5:30, I immediately headed downtown to Parker Center. I drove into the garage. There's Darrell Gates getting into his car. I said, "Where are you going?" "I got something I gotta do." That's the only answer I got. Now, as you may have heard, he was on his way to a fundraiser right up here in Brentwood.
First of all, I don't think it was a fundraiser. I don't think it was a fundraiser at all. I think it was a group of people, real strong supporters of mine, and they begged me to be there, and I didn't want to go. I don't like those things. I don't like them at all. But
Why he has to be shot? He was very high educated.
And so I made a commitment. And I'm the kind of person who likes to keep a commitment. And when I thought that I had some serious problems, my driver said, "You know, we're almost there, Chief, we're almost there." And my intent was to drop in, say, "Hey, I think we got a riot blossoming. I can't stay."
He also donated a lot of money to the Compton area. And the Compton police, they knows him. And the city council, they knows him.
To drop in, say, "Hey, I think we got a riot blossoming. I can't stay." And that's basically what I did. But it's awful hard to get away. I kept walking towards the door, walking towards the door. People want to take your picture, shake your hand, and it took longer than I thought.
So after I got done with that, trying to figure out what in the hell was going on with him, I mean, he's the chief! And this whole thing very well may be falling apart.
You got these young brothers out there thinking that they're getting something that they're gonna make a living with. They're getting something they can buy a car like the white people have cars. Why can't I have a car? They're getting something so they can get a piece of gold. The white people have gold. Why can't I have gold? They're getting something to get a house. The white people have a house. Why can't I have a house? And they actually think that it's something that's bringing resources to them, but they're killing themselves just like the wolf who's licking the blade, and they're slowly dying without knowing. That's what's happening to the community. You will know it. That's exactly and precisely.
Many people were just there because other people were there. A lot of people didn't really know why. I'm pretty sure most of the Hispanic people didn't even know why, because basically the Rodney King basically came out on channel 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13. Basically, no Hispanic news people really even came out with it. Not until after the incidents. Not until after the riots started. So basically, most of the Hispanic people didn't even know why.
That's bullshit. People were just as pissed off. People were just as on edge in the Latino community as they were in South Central. And of course, South Central is half Latino, but nobody talks about that, right? I mean, you know, there's just as much police abuse in the Latino community. I mean, you see police stopping people for jaywalking all the time. I mean, all the time. This does not happen in Beverly Hills. This does not happen in the Valley. Even though you're doing all the right things, I mean, there's still something wrong with you. You know, maybe it's because you speak Spanish. Maybe it's because you have brown skin. Maybe it's because you come from Mexico. But you know what? You're just not walking right. You're just not walking right. We had an insurrection in this city before, and if I remember correctly, it was sparked by police brutality. We had the Kerner Commission report, and as I stand here today in 1992, I see that what that report cited still exists today. Mr. President, we want our black men back on America's agenda. They've been dropped off of everybody's statistics and data. They're not in school, they're not employed, they don't live anywhere. They go from grandmama to mama to girlfriend. And Mr. President, not everybody in the street is a thug or a hood. Not everybody is a criminal. And if they are, Mr. President, then what about your violation? Oh, yes, I'm angry.
We are angry. The fact of the matter is, whether we like it or not, riot was the voice of the unheard.
My reaction? Surely they're not coming up here. This ridge is armed, secure. I was raised in a hunting culture. So was my neighbor. So was my son. I got calls from my liberal friends. Chuck, could you lend me a shotgun? And I said, oh yeah, you have to wait 2 weeks to buy one. But I did lend them some protection. But my friend John Milius, the screenwriter, said, nope, they're all being used.
This thing, everybody talk about the Koreans and the blacks and the Koreans, the blacks and the Koreans, the blacks and the Koreans. I didn't see it. I didn't see it. Now, Pep Boys, now see that right there. See, I didn't like the idea of them hitting Pep Boys. No, I didn't like that. Because I think, well, only reason I think they hit Pep Boys is just that Pep Boys was just too damn high. You know, people say, well, you know, let me get in here, give me some of that, whatever the hell they got in there. But now, I didn't loot this time. No, I didn't. Now, girl, get it out. Get it out. No, I'm not getting that out. I didn't loot. No, I didn't. I did in 1965, but this time, it was just much more than that for me. But I was praising the ones who did it, though. I was like, yeah, you know, you need to go ahead and burn that sucker down. And he worked so hard. He worked very hard. Then why he has to be shot, you know? I don't know why. So really angry, you know? I cry. Most my life. This is the time. I cry. All right. We got a call from our stringer in Beirut, wondering if we were all right. You know you've got some trouble in your city if your stringer from Beirut calls to say, are you all right?
Well, there was the fuse that was still burning and the uneasiness that was growing, but it was basically business as usual. You know, such and so on line 1, such and so on line 2, traffic, Wilshire, Santa Monica, like that. A bunch of us had to go to lunch at the Grill in Beverly Hills. You know, again, you know, major show business, you know, kind of sort of dead center business restaurant, kind of loud but genteel. And there was an incipient panic. The tension in the restaurant was palpable, it was tangible. You could cut it with a knife. Everybody was talking, you know, did you hear, you know, little bits of conversation, little bits of information. And we were basically working ourselves up into a frenzy, which had to do with guilt, you know, just generic guilt. And we're driving back from the restaurant to here. Yeah, it's about a 10-minute drive. People talking about the need to buy guns to protect themselves. So, I mean, you know, we've gone from there to there. And I mean to tell you that anything happened in the restaurant, you like somebody screamed at somebody. No, nothing. Just, you know, Caesar salad. You know, the whole bit went like that. And so we're coming from the underground garage into here. And we see people running around. I mean, people walk fast in this business, but now they're like running. And so we looked at each other and we said, we gotta close the office. Shut down. I mean, so we've gone from, I'm a little nervous, to we gotta close the office. This is a business. We don't shut down. Memo goes out, office closed for the day. Oh, then I remember somebody said,
Did you hear? They're burning down the Beverly Center. Yeah, by the way, they. There's no who. No. It's just, they. Did you hear? They're burning down the Beverly Center. What do you mean, who? There is no who. It's irrelevant. Just they. Somebody, it's not us. So, when I really started to worry about, the safety of my, or my family, because the panic was so high. Where's the nanny? Where's the kids? I actually started to think, do I deserve this? And, me personally, no. Me generically, maybe so, even though what's provoked it was a spark, which was the verdict, which was absurd, but that was just a spark. This was something that was set years before, and, maybe, not maybe, the system plays unequally, and the people who were who were burning down the Beverly Center had been victims of the system, whether well-intentioned or not. And so I basically began to absorb a little guilt and say, I deserve it. And, I don't mean to say I deserve to have my house burned down, but the us did, not in, I like to think not intentionally, but, maybe so. It's just, it was just so awful out there to see all of the destruction, so heartbreaking to see all of those, the devastation and the people burning down their own neighborhoods. Burning down our neighborhoods I could see, but they burnt down their own. That was more dramatic to me.
So the second day I had a date. And my date lived in the valley, which is about 20 minutes away. And they said, don't drive freeways. And I was just 3 weeks separated, and I didn't want to be alone. So I called him up, and I said, well, you're going to see me tonight because I don't want to be alone. He says, yeah. So he came to pick me up, and I said, oh, my God, where are we going to go? We can't eat anywhere. Everything is closed. And then I said, wait a minute. A hotel wouldn't be closed. They're going to be serving food. I said, let's go see if we can go to the Beverly Hills Hotel. And so we did. Much to my shock, the whole town, picture business people, everybody was there. And so for the 2 or 3 days of heavy rioting, we just all went to the Beverly Hills Hotel. So when they called me to interview me when the hotel closed, I said I went there 36 years for lunch. I said I wrote my book there. Well, my book starts out, I was driving into the Beverly Hills Hotel, and I talked about how we were all at the Polo Lounge at the hotel during the riots, because it was foremost on my mind. Some man wrote me a letter to Mrs. Young. I saw your interview on television. As far as I'm concerned, you are an asshole. You are a dumb shit bimbo. How stupid can you be? You are talking about having fun at the Beverly Hills Hotel during the riot. You are an embarrassment. And I'm sitting here reading this letter, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, if only he'd left his number so I could call him up and explain to him no way in the world that I mean to be flippant on television about the riots. It's just that there we were at the Beverly Hills Hotel. It was like, how far down can you go? At a certain point, you just have to say, let me put this out of my mind and go on. That was the mood at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Safety in numbers. Nobody can hurt us at the Beverly Hills Hotel. It's like a fortress. And we were just like, here we are, and we're still alive, and we hope that people will be alive when we come out.
It was rage, black rage. The blacks were upset. They were extremely upset. And since I've been back home, I see all the vacant lots. No wonder they were so upset, right? You got to realize that the verdicts, the not guilty verdicts, was heavy on everybody's mind. And I was following the trial because I wanted to see if justice worked. And on that particular day, justice did not work. Yes, I was upset. I was highly upset. That could have been me out there getting my ass whooped. And those 4 officers could have walked away after whooping my ass like that. I'm afraid not. I'm afraid not. I'm afraid not. Wow! Whoa! I'm afraid not!
We must respect the process of law, whether or not we agree with the outcome.
Well, it was like a carnival out there, and I said to my cousin Frances, I said, Frances, you see this? She said, girl, it's getting worse. And so I said, well, let me get my butt upstairs before something happened. And it seemed like as soon as I said that, I heard like a bottle being thrown. And I felt like a tingling sensation, and it was itching, and it was moist. And I did it like this, and I looked down, and I saw blood. And I said, Frances, I'm bleeding. And so we went out to her house. She said, lift up your gown and let me see. She said, Elvira, it's a bullet. I said, what? I said, I didn't hear nothing. She said, well, yeah, but it's a bullet. And she said, you go lay down there. Let me call St. Francis Hospital. Tell them send an ambulance. You've been shot. And the neighbor came over and said, you know, what? You know, why they had to shot you? You don't mess with none of them people. Why they had to shot you? You know, matter of fact, after some people say to me, Elvira, what you doing in it? I said, I wasn't in it. I said, I was coming to my house, It happened right here. It was kind of like a drive-by. So, you know, Francis said, well, the ambulance said going to take 15, 20 minutes. I said, Francis, I cannot wait that. I'm going. So I went upstairs, and I said to my oldest son, I said, Armand, take care of your brothers. And he was standing there crying. By then, they was all standing there crying. And what I did for them not to see the blood, I covered up with my gown, and then I didn't cry, so I wouldn't be nervous. And so I went downstairs, and I was getting in the car, and Frances said, what you doing? I said, I'm driving. She said, no, you not. And she got in, and she took all the back street because, you know, the streets was blocked. And she was so supportive. She said, Elvira, you feel dizzy? She said, you feel, you know, she said, you all right? You feel cold? She said, the baby moved. She said, you nervous? I said, no, I'm not nervous, but I'm worried about this baby. I said, I don't want to lose this baby. She said, Elvira, everything's going to be all right. Just pray. And we had to be blowing the horn. And we got to St. Francis Hospital, and we went to the front desk, and she said, she been shot. Everybody stopped what they's doing. And they said, well, what's she doing walking? I said, I'm all right. And we went upstairs to they put the monitor on to see if the baby was all right, and they found a baby heartbeat. Soon as they found a baby heartbeat, long as I knew whatever was, boy or girl, it was all right, then I calmed down. And matter of fact, you know, my doctor, Dr. Thomas, he was there in emergency room. What a coincidence, right? Because everybody's saying, oh, you're the best patient, you know, all day long, everybody else been screaming and yelling. I said, well, you know, I was too nervous. I couldn't do nothing. And long as I saw Dr. Thomas to see a familiar face, I knew I was looking for a familiar face. As long as I saw him, I knew I thought, you know, I'd be all right now. So Dr. Thomas came over with another doctor, and they say, Elvira, you know, we don't know how deep is the bullet, but we're going to operate on you. And when we operate on you, we're going to take the baby out so you don't have to go through all that. And they say, do you understand what we say? And I say, yeah. They say, okay, sign here. And that's the end of what I remember. I remember them preparing me and taking me up to the operating room, but Nella, no. She like company, no. And then I remember I heard Dr. Thomas in the background, and I think I remember him scrubbing his hands, but I was too drugged up. And he said, Elvira, you got a 6-pound, 12 ounces little girl, and he told me her weight and her length. And then he said, when she born, when she born, she had a bullet in her elbow. And he said, well, when we clean her up, the bullet was between 2 joints, and we operate on her, and we took the bullet out, but now your daughter is fine and you are fine. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and the doctor said when the bullet went in, it destroyed the placenta, and it went through me. She caught it in her arm. If she didn't caught it in her arm, her and me would be dead. So, it's like, open your eyes, watch what's going on.
Well, it's all confusion. And the more we talk about this, more facets of this confusion I can understand and see. I was coming back after having given a performance in Seattle. So I was in Los Angeles on the day of the riots. And some friends of mine who are very involved in things having to do with civil rights said, you know, you really ought to stay. And I said, I can't. I said, I have to. You know, I'm in the middle of a tour. I can't. And who knows whether or not the verdict's going to come down today anyway. I'm going to go, you know, to New York. And so I was on the plane thinking, well, gosh, I didn't have time to stay in Los Angeles, but what could I have done anyway? Besides go to somebody's church and sing a few songs? What could I have done? Besides to talk or to sing to somebody who would listen to me. I don't think people were in the mood to listen, to sing at that time somehow. But of course, exactly. In the civil rights movement, you'd sing first. And then you would organize whatever protest was happening that day or that week or whatever. And then we'd sing at the end of it as well. I mean, you'd sing all through it. We as African Americans have a great tradition of singing ourselves through troubles. This is how the spiritual came into being. That in order to deal with this unbelievable situation of having been transported from one's homeland and been brought to some strange place and made a slave, we had to sing ourselves through that. We didn't sing ourselves out of it. We sang ourselves through it. And I think that if I were a person, you know, sort of a teenager, a youngster, 20 or something, and I felt that I were being heard for the first time, it would not be singing as we know it. Oh, I think it would be a roar. It would come from the bottom of my feet. I think it would just be like a lion just roaring. It wouldn't be singing. It wouldn't be words. It would just be like the earth's first utterance. I really do feel so.
Denny was pulled out of the truck, kicked and beaten, all of it on live television, eventually seen coast to coast.
Police say the man putting his foot on Denny's neck and holding him down as others continued to attack him is 27-year-old Henry Watson.
Well, I mean, you know, that's mind-blowing. I mean, you know, you're talking about history. I mean, you know, that's a lot of pressure, you know. What I'm saying, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, you know, you go through life, you know, you want to make your mark, you know, you want to leave your mark and say, you know, hey, you know, I was here, you know, I did it, you know, I passed through this, you know, through life, you know, but never in my wildest dreams did I think that something like this would have happened in order for me to make my mark, you know, to leave my mark. I mean, you know, to have my name uttered in the same breath as these two gentlemen, or the same sentence as these two gentlemen. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I've been placed next to Martin. I'm talking about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. I mean, that's, you know, that's a lot of pressure. You know what I'm saying? That's heavy, you know? You know what I mean? You understand?
Here's the situation from South Central. The LAPD is nowhere to be found.
And I guess when I realized something was wrong was when they bashed in the right window of my truck. And that's the end of what I remember till about 5 or 6 days later when I woke up in Daniel Freeman Hospital. And they say that I was in a coma, and they were giving me morphine for pain, so it was a really interesting time. And I think when it dawned on me that something big might have happened was when important people wanted to come by and see me. And one of the first people I remember coming to see me, the first person I was really aware of who was waiting to see me, was Reverend Jesse Jackson. And I heard the name, and I'm going, not that guy. I mean, that's the dude I seen on TV all the time. And then Arsenio Hall came by to see me. And then, about then, that's when I started to get it.
Someone's standing there taking a picture. It's taking a videotape of the man laying on the street, but nobody's helping him. Unbelievable. Here's a man with a shotgun.
Accused my brother Lance of attempted murder, of shooting at Reginald Denny. They said he attempted to blow up some gas pumps, things of this nature. Now, my dad got shot in the streets 11 years ago over a petty robbery. And their attitude was, you know, we don't want to bring your family through the drama and the trauma. So basically, if it's a black-on-black crime, you know, if it's a nigger killing a nigger, then they had no problem with that. But, oh, you know, let it be a white victim, oh, they're gonna go, you know, they're gonna go to any streams necessary to basically convict some black people.
Reginald Denny did not know who saved his life until well after he came out of his coma. Bobby Green is a truck driver. He drove Denny's big rig to the hospital. Lee Ewell is a dietitian who got in the truck to comfort Denny. Titus Murphy was on the running board waving traffic away, and Terry Barnett drove her own car to block intersections to the hospital. All four testified they saw the beating of Denny on television and said that they felt they must go to the scene to try to help the trucker.
Since my brother was in the room, he looked over at me and he said to me, "We are Christians, we need to go help him." And I said, "You're right."
And Lee Ewell, she's a woman. And she said that she just kind of cradled me because there's no passenger seat in the truck. And so I was down on my knees and Lee was just like covered in blood. And Titus was on the side because they bashed in the windshield so bad that Bobby couldn't see to drive. So Titus was on the running board telling Bobby where to drive. And Terry, that's Titus's girlfriend, she was out in front driving through traffic, dodging towards cars, trying to tell them to get out of the way. And the next stop, Daniel Freeman Hospital. You know, one day I'm gonna have a house, and it's gonna have one of those rooms, and it's gonna be of all the riot stuff. And it's not gonna be a blood and guts memorial. It's not gonna be a sad room. It's gonna be a happy room where you could just go in there and have a good old time in there. And it's gonna be of all the funny notes I got and all the letters from faraway places, all the love and compassion, you know, just framed, placed, framed things. And it's just gonna be people in that room, and it's gonna be a wild place. It's gonna be a blast. One day, it'll happen. Lord willing, it'll happen. They caught it on video. Some brothers beating the shit out of a white man. And then they're gonna do everything in their power to try to convict those brothers. No justice, no peace. That's basically what my motto is, you know, and it's very simple. If we don't have no justice here, they're not gonna have no peace. Peace of mind, peace of body, peace of mind. You may wake up with a dent in your head. From now on in life may not be you, may be your daughter, someone in your family. There's just not gonna be no peace. Yeah. One day I'm gonna have a house. And when I finally have my house, I'm gonna have one of those rooms set aside. And it's gonna be my no justice, no peace room. I'm gonna have no justice over here on the wall, and over here, no peace. And it's gonna be all my articles and clippings so that my son, you know, my children, you know, could basically see, you know, if I do happen to be alive, God willing, could basically see what Daddy did, you know, what it takes to be a strong black man, right? If God calls you, what you gotta do, you know, for your people. Either you stand or you fall, either be black or you die. We didn't get to Beverly Hills. That don't mean we not gonna get there. Keep it up. And they say we burnt down our own neighborhoods. We burnt down these Koreans in this neighborhood. The Koreans was like the Jews back in the day. And we put them in check.
That's not right! It's not right what y'all doing! Why destroy my business? I'm trying to make it! Could you understand that? Can't y'all see it? I'm trying to make it!
To use the language of decline, decay, and despair, rather than doom, gloom, and no possibility. Because I think any talk about despair is not where you end, but where you start. And then the courage and the sacrifice come in, but at the level of hope, not optimism. Optimism and hope are different. Optimism tends to be based on the notion that there's enough evidence out there that allows us to think that things are going to be better. Much more rational, deeply secular. Whereas hope looks at the evidence and says, it doesn't look good at all. It doesn't look good at all. We're going to go beyond the evidence, attempt to create new possibilities based on visions that become contagious to allow us to engage in heroic actions, always against odds, no guarantee whatsoever. That's hope. I'm a prisoner of hope, though. I'm gonna die a prisoner of hope. Never believe that misery and despair have the last word. But I think if white folks were to experience black sadness, it would be too overwhelming for them. Very few whites could take seriously black sadness and still live the lives that they live in. Living in denial. Oh, it couldn't be that bad. And they got their own form of sadness. Tends to be linked to the American dream. But it's a very, very different kind of sadness. And do you remember where you were when you learned that there was going to be a second trial?
Well, I knew as I left that courthouse that there was going to be more. My experience from back home told me that the U.S. government was going to take its turn now.
Given the level of violence following the first trial, defense attorneys say their questioning of prospective jurors will be extremely focused.
Are you afraid? That's the number one question. Are you afraid to sit on this jury?
The thing is, we lost our humane in there. Because we saw that tape over and over again. Rodney King became like a doll, like a little doll. You know, even me, I lost my humane in there. You know, at first I told you, when the first time I saw the tape, how I was crying and everything. By the end, I could just, you know, watch it with a soda. So, anyway, I'm gonna tell you how we got to this verdict, okay? So, we get in here, right? And, all right, so at first, everything was going pretty good. And it looked like it was going to be a guilty on Officer Powell. Then we come back in here the next day, and things is going pretty good. And this one woman raises a hand, and she says, I think I'm getting a headache. I think I'm going brain dead. Let's just quit. I told him, I said, I don't believe you when you say you're tired. I said, I work at the post office. I said, I work an 8-hour day. They come in and tell me I got 2 hours overtime. I work 2 hours overtime, and I do a goddamn job good of it. And I don't say I'm tired because that is my job, and I'm not tired, and this is our job, and we are not tired. I agree with Maria. Don't be pussying around here. If you so goddamn tired, get your fucking ass out of here. We got 3 alternates who would love to take your places, so get your ass out of here if you so tired. Here come the black guy. I have not slept in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I have not had 1 bit of sleep, and I have broken out in hives. And he takes off his shirt, and the man is red all over his body. He's got hives all over his body. He's crying and crying and crying. He goes running out the room. I thought the man was going to have a heart attack. Now, we got this high-class lady, right? Real good job. Excuse me. She's over in the corner going like this. I hate arguing. I hate arguing. I hate arguing. I hate arguing. Now she busts out crying. Oh, please, if anybody writes a movie, if anybody writes a book, oh, please, don't say nothing about my family. And she starts telling us all this stuff about her family, which we didn't know, so why is she telling us now? After that day, right, I broke, right? Everybody broke, right? All this stuff that did not have nothing to do with the case, right? You know, once everybody's personal guilt came out onto the table and was pushed aside, then we could look at the evidence, the testimony. And, you know, we came to a verdict on Powell like that. Guilty. Nobody cried. Nobody argued. You know, nobody, brought up what happened to their sister 6 years ago. We just went through the evidence. Such and such said this. Such and such said that. Just like in school. Boom, 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 boom. It was simple. It took us 5 days, 4.5 days to get to that AA meeting. After that AA meeting, it took us 2 days to come up with a verdict on all 4 of them.
Outside the courthouse, a crowd erupted in cheers at the announcement of the 2 guilty verdicts.
The jury found Officer Lawrence Powell, who delivered most of the blows in the King meeting, and Sergeant Stacy Coon, who supervised, guilty. Timothy Wynn and Theodore Brasino were found not guilty.
Did it help?
Oh yes, oh yes, most definitely. All depends on what side of the track you're looking at as far as what it helped. From a black perspective, looking at it from the black neighborhood, it did help. First of all, let me make something perfectly clear. It's not a riot, all right? It's more just a civil unrest, or as a lot of us call it, a revolution. A riot is a situation where you don't have no political overtones.
Did you go out and riot?
Well, you know, first of all, like I said, I don't consider it a riot. I consider.
Did you go out and engage in the civil unrest?
You know what?
Did you go out
I was involved in a lot of things that went down. And rape. Oh, now you sound like the average European that kidnapped black folks over here. You talking about rape and stuff.
You steal when you're in a revolution?
Let me suggest one possibility here. As much as we all are going to talk, is just to make sure that we're listening.
Black and brown haven't gotten together in this town. They're living side by side, house to house throughout South Los Angeles, you know? And they're no more together today. There's no more understanding today than there was in 1992.
You know, it's very interesting that so many Korean people's anger came up against the police, because I think that many people thought they were cultivating the mayor and cultivating the police, and they have an idea of America being this land of everything is the law and freedom and fairness, and then they watched the police standing by when while their businesses and livelihoods were being destroyed. They were shocked. They thought, why are they protecting Beverly Hills and they're not going to protect us?
I used to believe America was the best. I still do. I don't deny that because I am a victim. But after the riots, when we were in such turmoil and having all the financial problems and all the mental problems, I began to realize that Koreans are completely left out of this society, and we are nothing. Nothing. What is our right? Why do we have to be left out? Is it because we are Korean? Is it because we have no politicians? Is it because we don't speak good English? Why? Why do we have to be left out? We didn't qualify for medical treatment? No food stamp? No GR? No welfare? Anything. Many African Americans who never work get minimum amount of money to survive. We didn't get any because we have a car and a house and we are high tax payer. Where do I find the justice? Okay? Many African Americans probably think they won by the trial. I was sitting here watching them the morning after the verdict and all the day. And they were having a party. They celebrated all of South Central, all the churches. And they say, well, finally justice has been done in this society. Well, what about victims' rights? They got their rights by destroying innocent Korean merchants. And I wonder if that is really justice for them to get their rights in that way. I was swallowing the bitterness, sitting here alone and watching them. Oh, they became all hilarious. But I was happy for them. I was glad for them. At least they got something back. Okay? Let's just forget about Korean victims and other victims who were destroyed by them. They fought for their rights for over 2 centuries. And maybe because of their sacrifice, other minorities, Hispanic, Asian, we would suffer more in the mainstream. That's why I understand. I have a lot of sympathy and understanding for them. That's why I have a mixed feeling about the verdict. But I wish that I could be part of their enjoyment. I wish that I could live together with black people. But after the riots, it's too much different. The fire is still there. How do you say it? 다시 숨겼잖아. Igniting fire. Igniting fire. It's still there. It can burst out anytime. Sometimes when I take my ideas to my homeboys, they say, well, Twilight, that's an idea that's before its time. Like in 1988, when I was talking about the gang truce, that was an idea they said was before its time. But then in 1992, we made it realistic. And so sometimes I feel as though I'm stuck in limbo, the way the sun is stuck between night and day in the twilight hours. I'm in an area not many people exist. And nighttime to me is like a lack of sun. Although I don't affiliate darkness with anything negative, I affiliate darkness with what came first because it was first. And then relative to my complexion, I am a dark individual. And with me being stuck in limbo, I see the darkness as myself. And I see the light as the knowledge and the wisdom of the world and the understanding of others. And I know, in order for me to be a true human being, I cannot forever dwell in darkness. I cannot forever dwell in the idea of identifying with those like me and understanding only me and mine. And so, twilight is that time between day and night, limbo. I call it limbo.
Go behind the scenes of Twilight Los Angeles with PBS Online. Check out Stage on Screen at pbs.org.
This presentation of Stage on Screen is proudly underwritten by Starbucks Coffee Company. Now you can find Starbucks whole bean and ground coffee in the grocery aisle.
Major funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, the Levi Strauss Foundation, the Luesta T. Mertz Charitable Trust, Dorothy and Louis Cullman, the Cornelius V. Starr Fund for Arts Programming at 13 WNET New York, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Miriam and Peter Haas Fund, the Harold and Mimi Steinberg Charitable Trust, and contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.